Hi, my name is Stevi Hillman, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about common problems I see, mostly with equipment. I help a lot of people with rein length. I have split reins on today because I like to ride with them on the colts, but for competition, you need to make sure that your reins are not so short that you're pulling on your horse's face or balancing on those reins. But then, it's always a balance, but then you don't want them so long to where you're up here balancing and your hand is not in the right position. So a good kind of rule of thumb is when your reins come back, they don't quite touch the saddle horn, but they're in between the horse's neck and the saddle horn, so that you have that, you have that space to where if you need to lift one, you're not pulling on both sides of the reins, but when you're just holding on, you're not way back here, or you're also not way up there in their face. And I think watching your videos to see if what you're doing, are you in your horse's face? Are your reins too loose and flapping around? That's something to really pay attention to, because that changes your body position. When your reins are up here versus up here, that puts your weight in different places. So make sure you're paying attention to those small things, because that cues your horse differently. Another thing I see is stirrup length. You see a lot of people where their knees are just straight down, where you can't balance. You can't stand up and get that balance that you need in the turns. And you also see them real short, to where when you go to stand up, you're way too high. So make sure you've got a little bend in your knee and you're able to stand up and get some balance, but your legs aren't just hanging to where you're just trying to grip for the stirrups. That's something to really pay attention to. Another common problem I see with bits, I see a lot of bits hanging in horses' mouths. Pay attention and be careful that your bit's not hanging down so far that your horse is constantly trying to pick that bit up and put it up in its mouth. Becomes a distraction where your horse isn't paying attention to you. So make sure you've got a little smile. Sometimes you want the bit a little looser or you want it a little tighter, but rule of thumb is you just want a little smile. You don't want it hanging down on their teeth where it's balancing down on their, lower part of their mouth. So pay attention to that. That's very important to how the bit works in their mouth, too. And another thing is boot wear, your protective boots. Make sure, number one, they fit your horse correctly, and number two, that you wear them. It's very important that your horse has protection, even if you're just working your horse on the barrels or over to running. It's important to have boots on your horse so that they don't hit themselves. They're athletes, and it's important to have that tight support. Make sure they're not too big to where they're falling off or they're wrapping around twice to try to get them on. And they're not too small to where they barely fit them. It's just like our boot size. Make sure your boots fit your horse well. Another problem I see with the protective boots is, be careful that you're not putting your boots on your horse 2 hours before you run. They're like thick socks to us. Think about a thick woolly sock on your leg in 110-degree weather. That's going to get really hot. That can cause blisters and sores and heat to the leg, unneeded heat to the leg. So be careful of not putting those on too early. And when you're done, make sure you take those boots off. They're hot, they've worked, you want to take those hot boots off their leg. That's very important. And cooling your horse out also. That's very important. Make sure, I see a lot of girls run their horse and they go immediately to the trailer and tie them up. I think, they're hot, their muscles are tight, they need to be cooled out and walked, and that's something that we, don't do as much anymore. So take your horse on a little walk and cool them out. Make sure they can catch their breath.